So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the Bank of England clamping down on Brexit-driven EU relocation. So I'm not going to pretend I know everything that's going on within this article purely because the Financial Times doesn't write for simpletons like myself. It writes for people who actually know a lot more about financial institutions. So there are certain bits I don't understand, which I will make it very clear which parts I don't, and I'm sure someone who is far more knowledgeable than me will explain in the comments what exactly some of this stuff means, because after trying to Google it, I had no idea. So, the Bank of England is demanding that lenders seek its approval before relocating UK jobs or operations to the EU, after being increasingly concerned that EU regulators are asking for far more to move than is necessary for financial stability after Brexit. So, my interpretation of that is that the Bank of England are saying that any financial lenders that, or financial groups that want financial services that want to move to the EU or set up subsidiaries within the EU have to ask for the Bank of England's permission first before they can do that, after they think the EU are asking for far more than they have to for companies to set up a subsidiary within the EU, because then by putting more sort of not red tape but putting more forcing companies to put in more money and more staff into the EU further weakens the UK's position, if that makes sense. So in order to set up a financial subsidiary from the UK into the EU, what the EU want is for the companies to put far more money and staff into, which further takes away from the UK, if that makes sense. Hopefully it did. That was kind of my interpretation of it. So by doing this, what it means is the EU take far more staff, and also these subsidiaries are far more stable because they require more money to operate within the EU. So the Bank of England has taken this stance, described by one senior banker as increasingly curmudgeonly. So curmudgeonly means bad-tempered and negative. So Andrew Bailey, a man who supported Brexit as well, is getting a taste of his own medicine firsthand, because the EU are not playing. They're not playing. They've taken their gloves off here, or at least they're taking their gloves off, and we're getting punched up right here. So going back to this, described by one senior banker, Andrew Bailey, as becoming increasingly curmudgeonly after hearing of several requests from the European Central Bank that it considers excessive and beyond what is required from a prudential supervisory perspective, saying that the European Central Bank is asking for far too much when it comes to UK services setting up subsidiaries within the EU. According to people familiar with the move, Governor Andrew Bailey has taken a personal interest in the issue. They added, my man supported Brexit. Let's see if he can do bits here, because we really need him to do bits. UK politicians and regulators have long been concerned that their European counterparts are attempting to poach as much financial services business as possible under the guise of repatriating robust oversight of all euro-related financial activities. So the UK have been becoming more concerned about the EU poaching financial services and euro-related financial activities, because that costs the UK money. If things aren't being taxed here, and if there are less, these people, less of them are working here, what that does, it means that we, the UK, lose money, and wherever these guys set up shop, they gain from it. Especially since people associate jobs with just one tax receipt, but the thing is, when it comes to jobs, these people put more money into the economy, further money. If you think about it, especially when these guys have a lot of money, or these people have a lot of money, spending money on food, on rent, or a mortgage, on lunch, coffee, or whatever, that money goes further into the economy. And so that's one of the reasons why the Bank of England should be concerned, especially with the prestige thing, because before it was, if you want to set up shop in Europe, your most likely destination was going to be London, or at least the UK. And what's happened now is Amsterdam, Frankfurt and Paris are looking like better destinations right now, because they are in the EU and the UK is not in the EU. However, the Bank of England's new stance has been increasingly criticised by regulatory overreach by international bankers, who feel that they are being caught up between the politicised demands of the UK Central Bank and the ECB's supervisory mechanism, being told in advance of banks' plans is one thing, but requiring regulatory approval is another thing. So what these bankers are being told is that if they want to do stuff from the UK within the EU, or move money or staff or whatever, they have to tell the Bank of England first. Which it does look like this is massively overblown here. That they should have to tell the Bank of England what their plans are when it comes to moving assets into the EU. They shouldn't have to do that. But the Bank of England's getting increasingly concerned because they know that their hold over financial services is slipping. The City of London is not, that OP anymore. It's not that overpowered anymore. It's not doing as well as it could have been doing within the EU. So the Bank of England and the ECB have declined to comment. Probably Andrew Bailey would say something stupid. So the move also risks further inflaming tensions between the UK and Europe amid delicate political negotiations over their post-Brexit relationship for financial services. So you've got to think that if the EU can just keep poaching services from the UK, then they have no reason to give us equivalency. And I think, as stupid as Andrew Bailey is, I think he must know that. Last week, Britain and the EU agreed to set up a talking shop, which is just, a place to discuss things. It's just to say that, I see you're setting up these regulations, very nice, very nice. We're getting rid of these regulations, stuff is going on. That's basically what this is. But the EU is still not indicated whether it will grant equivalency status to British regulations. Again, it's not in the EU's interest to give us equivalency because they're poaching services like it's no one's business. The three major, stock markets, trading hubs are Japan, the USA, and the UK. Why? Because they're in different time zones. They're in massively different time zones, and it's very easy for somewhere like Amsterdam, which time zone is slightly different from the UK, to start poaching a lot of business. A lot of people will move to Amsterdam, to these places. Amsterdam especially because it's a low tax place, and also that they have the language barrier isn't that high in Amsterdam because they speak very good English over there as well. So we mentioned the talking shop bit. Under this mechanism, the EU would recognise the UK financial rules as equivalent to its own and vice versa, which restores London a degree of direct access into the bloc after the split, which is Brexit, obviously. Banks that are deemed to be taking unnecessary risk can have their regulatory capital requirements increased by the Bank of England. So it means that if you're taking bad risk, then the Bank of England can say, "Oh, look, you need to put these things in place, otherwise, you're going to have problems." The Bank of England's requirements not only apply to UK and EU banks, but also those from third countries such as the US or Switzerland. In the past, they used London as a base passport of their financial service into the continent, and without the UK having that passport access, they're not going to be able to get into the EU. That's why a lot of these, Swiss and American bankers are going to start moving to the EU, because the UK is no longer that jump point into the continent anymore. We're out. Brexit means that the UK has lost this unrestricted access, and as a result, many lenders set up or bolstered their operations inside the EU, notably Paris, Frankfurt, and Amsterdam, like we mentioned before. Also, we're going to do 2 different videos at some point during the week. One is about JP Morgan threatening to leave the UK and saying that a lot more of their operations are going to be within the EU, and also another one about bankers who feel more and more like they were ignored during Brexit negotiations. While London has lost big chunks of euro-denominated share and derivative trading to Amsterdam, I mean, stuff which I do not have a lot of expertise on. This is stuff well above my understanding and interests. There has not been an exodus of jobs and revenue from London that some have predicted. EY estimates that only 7,600 jobs and $1.3 trillion pounds in assets have been transferred to the continent. But the thing is, that's a lot of money and tax revenue leaving the UK. You can argue that it's not as bad as first thought, but still, it's still pretty bad. If someone says to you your leg has been broken in one place instead of 3, you can be like, oh, that's great, but your leg's still broken. The UK is still going to struggle here when it comes to post-Brexit growth, because we have lost a lot of tax revenue and a lot of workers who also put out tax revenue and also, employ other people who also, put money into the economy via mortgage, rent, food, etc. So that's what's happened here. EU regulators have insisted that banks cannot operate small brass plate entities inside the block. So if we look at what brass plate entities are, a brass plate company or brass plate trust is a legally constituted company whose only tangible existence in its jurisdiction is a incorporation in the nameplate. So it's just, they're just registered somewhere, similar to what companies have been doing with British companies have been doing in Amsterdam, and also I think the Republic of Ireland, to avoid taxes. So the EU have said that, look, if you want to set up a subsidiary, it has to be something that's physical. It has to have some sort of financial muscle on it, because if things do go wrong, then all that happens is that company liquidates and they just set up another one, which basically puts the money in the hands of anyone trading shares, because buying and selling shares is gambling essentially. And so if you can make massive bets on shares and they go wrong, your small company liquidates and boom, you set up another one. So that's the thing the EU are trying to avoid here, with top executives, risk-taking staff such as traders and compliance officials remaining in London. So what the EU are trying to avoid here is that, like I said, people within the UK just setting up small subsidiaries, and when things go wrong, they liquidate. And these trades and stuff like that would be done from the UK if they were allowed to just set up these small subsidiaries. Does that make sense? That's what the EU is trying to avoid here, because that would cause massive problems and also give the UK way too much leeway, and also power, which I don't think we had before. Anyways, the Bank of England's Prudential Regulation Authority accepted this stance, and in the run-up to Brexit required lenders to draw up detailed models for what their businesses would look like initially over a longer period of time. These were known as Day 1 and Day 2 plans, which are a very strange way of phrasing something that's meant to be a longer term plan. But what do I know about any of this stuff? However, the Bank of England now believes the EU is trying to force banks to go beyond the agreed 2-day planning. The Prudential Regulatory Authority is concerned that ad hoc requests to transfer more business and leadership could undermine the safety and soundness of lenders' London-based operations. So what he's saying here is the EU are asking for far more than these these plans here, these Day 1 and Day 2 plans, and by asking for more staff and more finances to be transferred over to the EU, it weakens the UK as a trading country, or it weakens UK financial services, because you're having to move more assets and more staff over to the EU, which is a further loss for the British coffers, essentially, for the money within the country. And that was my interpretation of that bit. One example being examined is that the SSM, which is the single supervisory mechanism which belongs to the ECB, pushed to stop banks making excessive use of a controversial technique known as back-to-back operations that lets them transfer the risk of EU deals to parallel transactions within the UK. I'm not 100% sure what that means. The only thing I can think of is, UK traders can make risky bets as long as they're matched by something happening within the UK. I have no real understanding of what this means, but clearly the ECB see it as a big problem. If anyone can explain what this means in the comments, I'd be very grateful for that. Back-to-back operations. One person briefed on the matter said the ECB was not seeking that banks do more than stick to their Brexit plans under targeted operating models. So the ECB have said, we're not doing anything, bro, shut up. And the Bank of England are saying the ECB are asking for far more than what was agreed to under the Day 1 and Day 2 plan. So again, it's going to be very hard to know who's telling the truth here, but the only things I'll stress is that it's in the EU's best interest to cause as much problems within the UK financial services industry as possible, in order to get them to, hopefully in the EU's interest, to move to the EU. Also, a lot of these financial groups have moved to New York as well, which I believe has equivalency with the EU. So Enria, the supervisor, the chair of supervision at the ECB, told the European Parliament last week that supervisors were still in discussions with banks to ensure that in the post-Brexit world they would allocate enough staff and assets to institutions inside the banking union. He said this was necessary to ensure adequate management of both risks in and from Europe. So again, that further point that the ECB is telling these companies that, look, if you want to set up shop within the EU, you're going to have to transfer a lot of assets and staff in order to manage your trade portfolios, because we're not going to have you coming here and doing small trades. or sorry, trades, and not having the financial capital to back up your losses and just to liquidate and set up shop again. That's what the ECB is trying to avoid here. I don't know how possible that was whilst we were a member of the EU, but evidently the ECB are against this. So anyways, I'm going to leave it there. If anyone could explain certain aspects that I got wrong or anything like that, I know it's up to me to research certain things, but when it comes to trading, I have a very limited knowledge of this. The only reason I've done this video is to show you that the Bank of England are clearly very scared because financial services are leaving the UK and going to the EU, and he's gone so far, Andrew Bailey has gone so far to ask companies for approval before, banks have to ask for the Bank of England's approval before they can move stuff to the EU, which shows you how shook this man is, because before Brexit they didn't have to do this sort of stuff, and now he's forcing them to do this. And it's put, American and Swiss lenders in the awkward position of, well, do we want to put assets in the UK that we might have to move to the EU at a later date when we're going to have to ask this guy for authority, or are we just going to go straight to the EU and go from there? Because the UK's financial services industry, the City of London, is falling out of relevancy because of Brexit, because of what we have done, because we don't have free movement of capital. We don't have equivalency with the EU, and again, I stress that it's not in the EU's interest to give us that equivalency, because they can take as much financial services as possible from us. That benefits EU countries. Again, it benefits Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Paris, and there's a few more countries that are decent with financial services. I read in one report that some of them are moving to Stockholm in Sweden, which is crazy. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.